My name is Buqaqawuli Nobakada. I'm 21 years old and I'm a multidisciplinary visual artist. I think with art as a craft, like on a very technical level, it was the same as everyone else. But I think the moment when I started to see art as profession was in grade 9. I had a really amazing visual art teacher. His name is Mr. Ngomo. Like, that was the first time I saw art as profession and not just like as a hobby or, you know, all these things that people dismiss art as. Because what he would do is he would take us on these like little art excursions where we would go to artist studios. I remember we went to the late Ben and Lataya's studio. I remember going to Bag Factory. I remember going to Elliot House, August House, all of these art studios. And he would also bring artist friends of his, like practicing artists to class. I remember we would have collage lessons with Blessing Ngobeni. I remember I met Mr. Ayanda Mabulu through my visual art teacher. So I think that constant interaction with people who are doing art and like they're living off of it. It was a very important turning point. So the turning point was when it was during my first group exhibition for FNB Art Joburg, and it was curated by a lovely lady named Annelisa Manu. And I remember the moment, like it was a very magical moment for me when I walked in to Keys, which is where the exhibition was happening, and I saw the works of all these artists that I had been looking up to myself since I was in high school. And then I walked into the exhibition like as an audience member. So I went and I saw my own work, and I think it didn't register that it was my own work because it was next to the work of people that I had been seeing, works that I had been seeing, and people that I had respected for a long time. And then I turned around and everyone was like looking at me. I even, like, a friend of mine took a picture that moment because I was standing in between my artworks, and I turned around and everyone was looking at me, and it was like an acknowledgement that no, like I am the artist, like I that's my work and it belongs here. And it's as important as all these people that I had been studying all this time. And everyone had like, when I just seeing everyone in the room was like, yo, like I did something and it matters to people enough for them to like get dressed and leave their homes and come see this. So that's when I think I decided that like, I'm not going to stop doing this. What influences the work that I create is me and my experiences, and not even in a narcissistic way. It's like even the bad things, even the heartbreak, and I can't draw that from any other source but myself. But I will say that I remember seeing Diana Victor's Disasters of Peace, and that entire like series of artworks was crazy for me because it was the first time when I experienced art and my perspective was actually changed. And I started to think about things and other people's experiences that prior to walking into that exhibition or prior to seeing those artworks, I wouldn't have thought about before. So I start off by kind of like making my own paper. So I take lace that I layer over any kind of paper that I'm working with. And then I use white acrylic paint because it has adhesive quality, so that like sticks the lace onto the paper, and like they sort of become one. And that's why I feel like it's a process of like making my own paper. And then I add like layers of white acrylic paint also to drown the color of the lace. Sometimes like I let the color of the lace push through, sometimes I want it to be completely white. And then I I paint onto that prepared paper with acrylic paint. I also like adorning my artworks. I think especially because it's usually based on women, and as a woman, I enjoy adorning myself. So because like all of my work is based, if not on myself, on other real women who I know. So yeah, they carry their own energy, and that sort of like directs me when it comes to adorning them. Like the artwork will tell me what kind of earrings that it wants to wear. But I'm also not limited to that like way of working with the lace and the paper. I also do some works like where it's black paper and I draw on the black paper with like pastel, chalk, whatever I can find at the time. It makes me want to finish off or like fill in what I am. So it would be I am glorious, I am delicate, and I am powerful. I want to be able to look back on my work and see the different stages of my life that I was in. And that's why I say it's just based on my experiences, from the growth to the heartbreak to all the mistakes. Because it's universal, like those are universal human things. And I think we often feel alone with things like that because our only way of seeing other people's perspectives is like television and like social media, where it's extremes, right? So like on social media, you see like the really, really, really good stuff and everyone looks like they're living the best, prettiest kind of life. Or you're just looking at terrible news headlines or terrible things happening like all over the world. But I think that in between space, the loneliness, the heartbreaks, the not feeling like you belong, even the moments of glory, I think that's what we don't document enough. So in those times, you feel really, really alone. And that's the space that I play around with. I'm really tired of everything surrounding African women to be in the context of struggle. It's always like, African women are beautiful, but because they've been told they're not for so long. Or African women are so strong because there's always that like attachment that's like negative. And it's always like, oh, we're glorious because we've been fighting for so, like I think I want to remove that context of struggle. My work in the exhibition speaks to the conversation around Black women unapologetically being, because the people that were my muses in all of the works are my friends, who are also Black women themselves. And I think even in the creation of this work, we were having a lot of conversations around womanhood and specifically the Black experience of it. I keep trying to enforce this idea of us being allowed to be the bare minimum or to do the bare minimum and still be celebrated for it and not have to like fight our way through things. I think that the idea that we need to be strong is something that I don't agree with. And even like the works themselves, like they're very fragile, the material is fragile. Even lace as a medium in itself, it speaks to femininity, it speaks to like sensuality, it speaks to like being comfortable in our own bodies. The easiest part was on a technical level. I think I enjoy art as like a craft, I enjoy it as a practice. I enjoy laboring over work. I can sit in a studio for hours and paint. So that was the easiest part. Not even necessarily because what I am painting is easy to paint, but the action of painting itself is something that it's always my preferred action. The hardest part, I think conceptually, the subject matter is very delicate, especially when we're talking about Black women and their existence. And I'm saying really sharp things. Even having thoughts about like saying that we should be allowed to do the bare minimum is a very sharp thought. So it's very, very delicate like subject matter, because you also don't want to, in the name of allowing Black women to be delicate, like disregard those struggles because they are real. I don't have a specific way that I want anyone to feel when they leave, but I hope that my work will be a breath of fresh air in the sense that we can have conversations about being Black and being a woman. I want people to be able to look at the art and say, this is beautiful. I've studied art since I knew what studying was, and one thing I have found is that when it comes to Black art, it's almost like our names are never there, but the art is. So I remember, even if you study Picasso and Cubism, you'll be told that he was influenced by African masks. But I'm Xhosa and I'm African, and there are no masks in that culture. This is a very big continent with 54 countries. I don't a multitude of tribes and languages, and saying things like African art, Black art, you're not saying anything at all. And it's extremely frustrating that I can name European and American artists off the top of my head, numbers of them, even the artworks. But when it comes to Black art, it's that umbrella term of African art, African rock art, African, and I don't think that's true. I think that we have gone through as much progression, as much variety, as much practice as the Western world. But the only difference is that our art is there, but our art isn't named. And even with those masks, even the tribes that do have masks have different ones. So what is the name of the person that designed the thing that inspired Picasso? How do I know him and his work and all the ages that he went through by name? But when it comes to my own, it's just this umbrella term. And even within South Africa, I don't even enjoy when things are categorized as South African, because Xhosa culture is not similar to Venda culture, which is not similar to Zulu culture. From attire to the way we do things, to the way things look, to the art that we create. And oftentimes, African art, especially the further back you go in time, all of it carries very rich meaning. Those masks were for specific rituals, for specific people, and all of those things need to be named. If there's one thing I would change, it would be that. And that's why I think going forward, it's so important for us to write our own stories and explain things our own way, because the Western world has shown us time and time again that they won't. They will appropriate the work though. The work will be there, the work will be used as a point of reference, as a point of influence. So the work is good enough, it belongs there. That's why it counts as an influence.